Here we go. Nebraska is gearing up for their biggest recruiting weekend of the year, hosting over 10 five-star prospects. Yes, you heard me correctly, along with multiple 4-stars, flip candidates, and so much more. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a full breakdown of every single player visiting Lincoln, who they are, what they bring to the table, their interest in Nebraska, what other schools are in the mix, whether or not they're going to commit to the Huskers, and everything else you need to know. So really quick, this is a jam-packed video. Make sure you watch the entire thing because it gets crazy. Hit that like button if you're fired up. And also, we are getting so close to 12,000 subscribers. So listen, if you're a diehard Nebraska fan and you enjoy daily content talking about your favorite team, it would make my day. It takes 2 seconds. Please hit that subscribe button. Help us at 12,000. Thank you so much. But without further ado, let's get into it. Going over a full preview of Nebraska's biggest recruiting weekend of the year over the next couple days. The Huskers will be hosting multiple big-time 4-star and 5-star prospects in both the 2026 and 2027 recruiting classes. We'll start off with the 2026 prospects, and then we'll get to the 2027 guys in the back half of the video. You're going to want to stick around for that because there are so many 5-stars visiting in that cycle. So let's just get things started with the 2026 class, the best player who's visiting for Nebraska, arguably the biggest guy that they're even going after, period. This is 5-star Kelvin Obat. According to On3, they have him listed as the 8th best player in America, the number 3 offensive tackle, number 1 player in Idaho. This guy is listed at 6'6", 300 pounds, a complete bulldozer, running over guys in this film, pancaking everybody. And the thing about Kelvin Obat that's so special is that he has all good weight on him. So while he's 300 pounds, he basically doesn't have any fat. It's all muscle. And for that reason, whatever program he goes to, he's going to be in line to start right away at left or right tackle. So, I mean, he's a blue chip prospect. He's a freak athlete. He's also a shot putter. He's a track athlete. So that's huge from a Nebraska recruiting standpoint. He's the real deal. There's a reason why the Huskers have been going after him for so long, and it's expected that Nebraska, if it comes down to NIL, they will be very aggressive. So talking about Kelvin Obat's recruitment a little bit, he's down to 4 schools: Utah, who he visited last weekend, Nebraska visiting this weekend, and then Oregon and Michigan. And right now, it's pretty much open to all 4 of those schools. There's really not one that's really leading the pack. Oregon, obviously, is the team that's closest to home. They've had the most success recently. They have a lot of NIL money as well, so that's concerning. You have Michigan, and the reason why they're involved is because of their recent success bringing a lot of linemen to the NFL. You have Utah, and they have a great relationship with his family, with him in particular. And then the reason why Nebraska is in the mix is frankly because of the facilities and also because of Donovan Raiola building up that relationship with Kelvin Obat and the fact that they've been recruiting him for so long. So listen, Nebraska, they're in a really good spot here with Kelvin Obat. It's going to be a hard commit to land, as you'd expect with a 5-star offensive tackle, a blue chip guy like him. But if this comes down to NIL, Nebraska, they're going to be very aggressive. There's only 3 prospects I really expect them to be aggressive with when it comes to NIL in this class. It's Kelvin Obat, it's Valdon Sony on the D-line, and then it's CJ Brown, a current Nebraska corner commit. So listen, I do like where he stands, but it's all about making him feel special, making him feel valued, continue to build a relationship with him this weekend, and hopefully he comes out of it and says, hey, this could be my next home. He will be committing likely in early July, so watch out for Mr. Kelvin Obat. So big-time player visiting Nebraska, arguably the biggest player that they're going after, period, in this entire class, a guy who could potentially start on the offensive line right away. Now, let's get to Mr. Brian Bonner, one of my favorite players in the class of 26 that Nebraska is going after, coming out of California, top 100 running back, borderline 5-star guy. This is somebody who is listed at officially 6'1", 185 pounds, and his recruiting process has completely been shaken up over the past couple weeks. It looked like for a while that Penn State and Notre Dame were running away as the 2 favorites, but now they're not even recruiting him anymore because they took running backs ahead of him. So it looks like Nebraska, Washington, and UCLA are the final 3 for Mr. Brian Bonner. Penn State's still kind of in the mix, but it's going to be pretty much Nebraska, UCLA, or Washington. This is somebody who has great speed. He can catch passes. He fits this Dane Holgorsen offense better than any running back that we're pursuing. He's a guy coming out of California, so you know he has quickness. You know he's playing against great talent. He already has a great build on him, listed at 6'1". So Brian Bonner, another blue chip running back in Nebraska. They've been working hard behind the scenes to land. Now, right now, UCLA is probably the leader in the clubhouse. Brian Bonner has not visited Nebraska in quite some time, so once again, it's important for them to build a relationship with him, make him feel at home in Lincoln. Sometimes with these California prospects, it's hard for them to move with Lincoln because they're by the beach, and I don't blame them. If they're from LA, it's definitely a tough adjustment. But again, making him feel at home at Lincoln is very important this weekend. And also making sure that he knows if you were to come here, he could potentially play right away. Again, the running back room as it stands, we might not have Emmett Johnson next year. So the running back room is going to be completely wide open. If Brian Bonner were to commit here, he could potentially start from day one. That's going to be very enticing for him. Then the third prospect in the class of 2026, this is Mr. Cameron Hamel. This is a top 200 cornerback. This is at 6'1", 175. Now, this is somebody who reminds me a lot of Amari Sanders, current Nebraska corner who was coming out of Miami, Florida, just because long arms, obviously very tall, very physical, not afraid to lay the boom on anybody, but also great instincts, great speed, great quickness. You saw that pick six right there on his film. So Cameron Hamel's a guy who just checks every single box. Nebraska, they like these lengthier corners who are not afraid to tackle. That's what we get here with Cameron Hamel. So there's some big time schools in the mix here for him. Oregon's somebody that I'm very worried about. He's going on official visit to them as well. You got Texas A&M in there. You got a couple others. I think Texas A&M probably is the favorite right now. So Nebraska, they got some ground to work up. Again, they've really only been recruiting him for a couple months now, but this is somebody that Addison Williams, ever since he got hired here, he made it a point of emphasis to go after this guy very, very hard. And the reason why he's interested is because of Addison Williams and also because of John Butler with his track record of bringing guys to the NFL, with his track record of being in the NFL, coaching some of the best secondaries with the Bills and the Houston Texans. So I think if Cameron Hamel can continue to trust the development here, we're going to stand in a lot better of a place than where we were right now after this weekend. So I think we're in a good spot. But again, you have some ground to make up. We'll see what happens here with Oregon and Texas A&M, and then Penn State also in here as well. Then you got Cameron Wilson, who's one of my favorite prospects that Nebraska is pursuing, current Syracuse commit. The thing about Cameron Wilson, he's an edge rusher coming out of Miami, 6'5", 210 pounds. He's completely skin and bones, but he has everything that you can't teach. The speed, the quickness, the explosiveness, the long arms, that's so textbook. From an NFL scouting standpoint, he is every box check. He's phenomenal. The weight will come. When he gets to college, he's going to put on that weight. But it's all about the speed right now. Just look at him jump off the line of scrimmage with that little swim move. There you go, get to the quarterback. So, again, he's been committed to Syracuse for some time now, but he's made it very clear that he's not fully committed, right? Florida State's going after him hard. NC State's in there. Mississippi State, Nebraska obviously in there. And this is somebody who I fully expect Nebraska to flip. I really do. I could see it by the end of this weekend. I could see by the end of June, especially if Syracuse doesn't have the season that we're expecting. I think Nebraska will flip Cameron Wilson when it's all said and done because of his relationship with Philip Simpson, who's a Florida guru, and also with Rob Dvorak. They've been doing some good works behind the scenes. A couple other guys here, Kason Thomas, who is a linebacker coming out of Sioux City, Iowa, Nebraska. They've been involved for a very long time. We've been talking about Kason Thomas for almost a year on the channel. A guy who's just a very explosive athlete, but more than anything with Kason Thomas, he's just a very smart linebacker. A guy who's just going to be productive in the Big Ten. He might not be the most athletically gifted guy in the world, but he's a very, very high floor. And if you were to come here, potentially be in the mix to play right away. Now, think about Kason Thomas. I will say this, I don't love our odds. You got Iowa there, who I think is the favorite. You got Iowa State, some other regional schools. So it'll be interesting to see where Nebraska stands after this visit, but I wouldn't expect anything from Kason Thomas, but another name in the linebacker class that you should know. A couple other guys on the 26th class before we talk about the loaded 2027 class that is visiting. Ryan Mira is somebody who is very enticing. 6'4", 300-pound center coming out of Miami, Nebraska. They've done a very good job in this Miami area. Now, he is committing in about 3 weeks. He's basically down to Nebraska, the hometown school, Miami, and also Ole Miss. Now, right now, the Hurricanes, they are the leader in the clubhouse. They are projected to land him. But I'll say this about Ryan Mira. He's a great relationship with Donnie Raiola, and also Nebraska's made him feel like a priority. They made him feel like they want him as badly as any other offensive lineman in this class. Miami's not done the exact same thing. Miami's already landed multiple offensive linemen. So if Nebraska continues to make him feel like a priority, more so than Miami, I wouldn't be shocked if when he does commit, which I believe is June 26th, don't quote me on that, he'll end up going over to the Huskers. And then I don't expect Ole Miss to land his commitment. I think it's going to be Nebraska or Miami, which feels like it's the case for a lot of prospects these days. Then Hayden Ainsworth, another guy coming out of Mississippi, 6'5", about 300 pounds, offensive guard. Another guy who's going to be committing very soon. He's taking visits to Ole Miss, North Carolina, Liberty, Florida State as well. This is somebody who actually grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. He moved away when he was young, but he's very familiar with the state, very familiar with the program, and that's why he's interested in Nebraska because, he's been around the block a couple of times. So Hayden Ainsworth, Edgeworth, also a guy who will probably commit by the end of June, if not early July. Ole Miss right now, leader in the clubhouse, as you'd expect. But once again, Nebraska, they can make up a lot of ground pretty quickly if they want him. And then last guy who's uncommitted that's visiting Nebraska in the 26 class, who I expect to commit to the Huskers, this is Rex Waterman. Now, again, very low 3-star, but Nebraska, they genuinely feel like they have a hidden gem here. He's also visiting Duke. He visited UCLA already, along with Boise State. I could very well see Rex Waterman commit to Nebraska on Sunday night. I could very well see him commit to Nebraska on Monday. So, again, watch out for this one. Pretty much almost a done deal guy coming out of Chandler, Arizona. But Nebraska, they feel like they have a hidden gem. They feel like they have somebody who should be a 4-star. So, just wanted to mention that. And then also, before we get to the 2027s, let's talk about CJ Brana, because we have to treat him like he's an uncommitted prospect, because that's how elite he is. That's how hard it is going to be for Nebraska still to sign him, despite the fact that he's committed with us. Listen, CJ Brana, we know that he visited Florida last weekend. We've heard everything from that it was phenomenal, that he loved it there, that Millie Napier spent so much time with him more than any other prospect, that he felt like the big dog along with a bunch of other 5-stars, that he was the most important player on campus. So Florida left a good impression on him. Nebraska needs to do the exact same thing. If I'm Matt Rule, I'm sticking with CJ Brana the entire weekend. I don't care that Kelvin Obot's there, and Kelvin Obot is a great prospect. We should still be hanging out with Kelvin Obot. But if I'm Matt Rule, I'm sticking around with CJ Brana the entire time. Okay, not these other guys. He'll hang out with those guys a couple other times, right? But CJ Brana, the majority of the time, he should be with him, because CJ Brana, you got to build a relationship. You got to continue to work on that, make him feel at home, remind him of the reasons he committed originally. If that can happen, I still like our chance with landing CJ Brana. It's Central Florida. He's also going to visit Penn State. He's also going to visit Florida State. Not really worried about those other programs, but make him feel like a priority once again. Remind him of the reasons he committed originally. Remind him of the development. Remind him of the playing time factor. Remind him of the NIL, which is very good for Nebraska. And I think we will land his commitment, continue to land his commitment. I think he'll shut things down by the end of June. All right. Let's talk about the loaded 2027 class, because there are so many 5-stars visiting in the 27 class. I've already told you guys, 2026 probably will be a top 20 class when it's all said and done, maybe top 15 if everything goes right. 2027 will be likely top 10 if Nebraska can win 8-9 games. That's the trajectory it's on. Let's just go over every single prospect in the 27 class. We'll go over it not as in length, but we'll talk about every single guy. So Mark Matthews is listed as the 7th best player, number 2 offensive tackle. He will be visiting Nebraska, 6'6", about 300 pounds, coming out of Florida. He will be in town for his first ever visit at Nebraska. So that's 1 5-star. It's also mentioned that Kennedy Brown might be visiting, who's the number 1 offensive tackle in his class, 5-star. So that's 2. Then you got Duve Williams, who's a corner coming out of California. I reported on the channel last week that he would be visiting. That's a 5-star who's just an absolute stud. Every single offer you can imagine. He will be in town. Then you have Ahmad Hudson, who Nebraska's been going after for a very long time. Both a football and basketball recruit. When it comes to football, obviously 14th best player in America, best tight end in his class. Elite, down to us or LSU as it stands right now, but obviously a long way to go. Then you got Albert Simeon, who's the number 1 interior offensive lineman in his class, another 5-star guy out of Louisiana. Nebraska, once again, looks like they're in a good spot. He's already visited them multiple times. You also got Bama, you got LSU in there, but another 5-star. Then you got Juju Johnson, who's a 5-star according to a couple of recruiting sites. Top 30 player in America, 5th best corner in this class. Another guy coming out of that California area. Then you got Arian Washington, once again, another corner who's a 5-star according to some recruiting sites. Listed at 6 foot tall, 155, super athletically gifted. Another guy coming out of California, Nebraska, obviously doing a pretty good job in that state. You got Mr. Trey Taylor, who I consider a 5-star. He's again number 13 player according to Rivals.com. They said that they're going to bump him up by the end of the summer. 5-star quarterback who's committed to Nebraska. He's going to be peer recruiting all weekend long with both 26 and 27 guys. You got Corey Hadley, another member of the secondary coming out of Georgia, who's a top 50 player in his class. You got Rashad Streets, who's an edge rusher coming out of North Carolina, 6'3", 230 pounds, freak athlete. Again, a lot of offers all around the country. You got Kelsey Adams, who's visited Nebraska multiple times already, coming out of Atlanta, 6'5", 260 pounds. Looks like a complete grown man. He plays like a grown man. He's visiting Nebraska once again, top 100 prospect. You got Damari DeZurin, who is a 6 foot tall, 170 pound athlete coming out of California. Once again, he can play receiver, he can play corner, he can play all over the field. That's a guy who's so fast, so shifty. You also got Jalyn Hill, another corner coming out of California. Clearly, they're doing something right. That's a top 200 prospect in his respective class. And then last but not least, another offensive tackle, 6'8", 310 pounds. This is Joshua Sam Apelli coming out of Georgia. And that's not even mentioning a bunch of other guys who might be coming on campus. You know, Cooper Hackett might make his way on campus. That's a 5-star offensive tackle. You might see a couple of running backs get on campus, like a Noah Roberts coming out of Arizona that Nebraska's been going after, a Myson Johnson Cook coming out of DeSoto. So it's very, very possible that Nebraska might not only have 10 5-stars on campus, they might have 15. With this 7v7 tournament, that's the big thing that's bringing all these prospects here. It's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be insane. I'm fired up for this weekend, but it's important for Nebraska, again, to build these relationships with these guys, have them check out Lincoln, have them understand that it's not just a cornfield. It's not a cornfield at all. It's a thriving city that loves football, that loves this team, and more importantly, if they were to come here, they're going to get on the field right away. They're going to be a part of something different. They're going to make their own legacy, and they're going to potentially win championships here. So, man, what a recruiting weekend, the biggest we've seen in a very, very long time. Let me know your thoughts down below. I am fired up if you are too. Let me know in the comment section. Hey, if you made this far in the video, hit that like button and subscribe. As always, folks, go Big Red, go Met Rule, and I'll see you in the next one.